Hello and welcome to the Practical Animal channel. These images are of the channel's wildlife garden towards the end of winter, and here we can see a male pied wagtail and a male blackbird. The channel is for you if you want to know what it takes to work with animals. That could be with domestic species, companion animals, such as dogs and cats, or it could be with agricultural livestock. Or perhaps you want to work with wild animals, either in the wild, or as a field naturalist, or it could be in captivity as a zookeeper, for example. Every week, I interview an animal industry professional, asking about the skills needed to work with a particular animal. My next guest is Professor Mark O Shea. He is a Professor of Herpetology at the University of Wolverhampton in England. He is also a former television presenter of several high-profile natural history documentaries, predominantly on snakes and other reptiles. I interviewed Mark several days ago about what it takes to work with snakes. Watch with me as Mark joins us for the fourth programme in the series. What's your best snake fact, please?
I think one that probably surprised people who think that everything's been described already is the fact that 200 new species of reptiles are described every year, thereabouts, and probably an equal number of amphibians. I mean, just to give you some figures, in 2019, 219 species of reptiles, including 54 species of snakes, were described as new. In 2020, 254 species of reptiles, including 69 species of snakes. 2021, 188 new species of reptiles, including 56 new snake species were described. So the numbers are going up all the time as people discover new species and describe them. Equally, some species get knocked off the league table, if you like. It's not because they've gone extinct, because they still exist as a species if they go extinct. But they may be synonymized. It may turn out that two species are actually the same species, just a juvenile or adult phases that look different, or just like coloration or patterning differences at two ends of the range of the same species. So sometimes species get sunk into what's known as synonymy. They disappear inside another species. They become a synonym of that. But the numbers are going up all the time. So it's a great time for biodiversity exploration, and never has the planet needed biodiversity exploration in this time of disappearing biodiversity.
That is absolutely astonishing when you compare it with other taxa, other species.
Yes.
For example, how many birds are discovered every year? I don't know. I mean, is that relevant to other? Can it be applied?
There's probably a good reason for that. Birds are up in the air. You can see them. They're sitting on branches. So birds are fairly visual, and people have been studying birds for a lot longer than they've been interested in reptiles and amphibians. I mean, birds were sort of the way into a naturalist life in the 19th century. Everybody was interested in birds. They were less interested in reptiles and amphibians. But birds tend to be out there. They're advertising themselves with sound or color, and you can't miss them sitting on a branch. Mammals, yeah, a lot of mammals are secretive, and new species of bats and rodents do get described, but it's not often you have a new large mammal. Although they did find a new species of dwarf cow in Vietnam after the Vietnam War, I believe. But new species of large mammals are a rare occurrence. And if they do occur, it's often because they've looked at a species complex, a wide-ranging species, and discovered in actual fact it isn't one, it's more than one, and they're able to split it. And that's where molecular techniques come in very handy, because they do help you to see different populations as different species, when cryptically they may look very, very identical because they're occupying the same niche in two different places.
What's the statistics regarding other taxa of reptiles, for example, crocodilians?
Well, crocodilians. For decades, there were 23 species. When I say crocodilian, I mean crocodiles, alligators, their relatives, the caiman, the gharial and the false gharial, all of the crocodilians, the living crocodilians. And for decades, since my childhood, there were 23 species. There's now 27. And how that's come about is that molecular techniques have been applied to some of the widely distributed species. And this was done with some of the like the narrow-nosed crocodile in Africa, and the dwarf crocodile in Africa. And when they looked at those from a molecular standpoint, they found that these two crocodilians that might be divided by mountain chain or some other habitat that created a barrier, they actually were not one but two species, as I just suggested could occur with mammals. And when they looked at the New Guinea crocodile, freshwater crocodile, they discovered that the crocodiles north of the mountain chain and south of the central mountain chain, although they were all cited up to that point as Crocodilus novaguineae, they were actually unrelated species. Well, closely related, but not the same species. And so one of them was described as a new species altogether. So it became Crocodilus hawley. So the number of crocodilians has gone up to 27 in probably the last half dozen to 8 years or something. I haven't looked at the exact figures, but it's recent, where it was 23 all the time since my childhood.
The video with Mark O Shea continues next week, when he answers the question, what is the process that takes place once a new species of snake is discovered, including the documentation of physical characteristics such as ventral scale counts, the subcaudal scale count, differences between males and females, how new species can be described from a single specimen, and the peer review process. You won't want to miss that one. Here we are back in the Practical Animal Winter Wildlife Garden with pied wagtails and blackbirds. If you liked this video with Mark O Shea and found it useful in explaining the skills and personal qualities needed to get a job or establish a career working with reptiles and particularly snakes, then please consider clicking like. If you want to work with animals and wish to have access to more exclusive content about how to do so, then please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing it with your friends and followers. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to watch this video, and we end with a pair of pied wagtails interacting around the food bowl. Thank you.